This is Matthew, host of the Superhero Ethics Podcast, and I've got an ethical question for you. If I'm trying to help you not listen to ads, is it ethical for me to do an ad to help you do that? If you go to our website, theethicalpanda.com, and just click on the join button, for $5 a month, $55 a year, you get to hear all of our episodes without ads. Was I ethical in doing this? Let me know. Hello and welcome to this episode of Superhero Ethic. My friends, we've come to the end of 2025. It has been a very active year for us in superhero ethics discussions, and our favorite comic book nerd, Jessica Plummer, has joined us to look back at 2025, look ahead to 2026, 2026, and talk about what has this year been like in terms of comic book media on screen. Jessica will do her best to concentrate, but I've thrown a high distraction at her in that I am now taking care of my little pen while I do, and so he is on the camera. Really good time to go check it out on YouTube. If you're not watching these on YouTube, just search for The Ethical Panda. But meanwhile, Jessica, beyond being incredibly proud of the little hat that you made this boy that he's wearing at the moment, how are we doing right now?
I'm doing great, especially with our special guest here.
I'll try to edit out his little noises, but you'll probably hear a little bit of them as we go along. So, obviously, there's so much that's been going on. We're getting a reset of DC this year. We have Marvel kind of chugging along coming to the end of this biggest phase as we get ready for Doomsday next year. Obviously, this is a huge question, but kind of looking back, kind of how are you looking at 2025 in terms of comic books on screen?
In terms of specifically comic books on screen and nothing else, I think it was a pretty good year. I really am very impressed with the movies that we got this year.
Mm-hmm. And that's good, because I know the last couple of years, I think we've had a lot of conversation about superhero fatigue, and I do think there's some truth to that. And I think that certainly we'll discuss, the quality of the various things that have come out this year. Across the board, the numbers for both superhero movies, but also movies in general and TV shows are pretty down. But I think we have gotten some really good ones and some ones that we've had some questionable thoughts about. And let's start going over it, and we'll talk about specific ones, but I want to start with a high level with our two big players. What do you see in terms of where Marvel is right now?
I mean, I feel like a sports commentator. Like, I don't know if they can pull this one off. I think Marvel's in a really difficult position because they were riding so high
right
at this point, 8 years ago? And they have really struggled to maintain that after Endgame and God, I can't even remember what these are called anymore, whatever the other one was.
Infinity War.
Thank you. But that's part of the problem. There's so many of these movies. They're all in the same continuity. Mm-hmm. And I think audiences are exhausted by trying to keep up with it. They're exhausted by being fed a lot of the same things over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it started to feel like an obligation. So I will say that I did think that both of Marvel's movies this year were very solid. But I would not want to, if I were trying to fix their problems, like that seems like a hard job. I would not want to be in that position right now.
Yeah. Well, first, I think there were 3 Marvel movies, weren't there? There was Captain America came out at the start of this year.
I fully forgot that one even came out, which,
yeah,
I mean, goes to show. And I mean, I think that's a great example. Like, I actually did not see that movie. And that, I don't know if you want to get into the specific movies yet.
Well, I think we'll lead into that in a second. I think what I would just start to say is kind of echoing part of what you were talking about just then. I feel like Marvel's one of their big problems right now is that they're so scattershot, and that they've been, it feels like, and throwing all sorts of things at the wall. And like, I've been going back and watching some old movies and remembering how many plot lines were set up that then nothing happened with.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I went up for an earlier episode talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. Do you remember that Hercules was spoiled in that one? Not to mention Love of the Love and Thunder combo. For a while, we were talking about setting up the Young Avengers. I don't know where that's going. We were setting up the New Avengers, and all of it's coming together in this thing for Doomsday next year. And I feel like if you compare where we were where we were at this point a year before Infinity War and Endgame, we'd already seen Thanos starting to show up in a couple of movies. We'd seen the Infinity Stones coming up again and again, all the way back to Phase One. It felt like that time so much was being done, whereas this time, other than the Fantastic Four movie, there's been almost no setup for Doomsday.
Well, that's part of it, but I also feel like it's not just that plot threads are being dropped or like that haven't been developed, and that there's less of a vision. I feel like it's also there's a certain element of too little, too late. So
Right.
in the case of, for example, in the case of the new Captain America movie, it kind of reminds me of the Black Widow movie. Like I remember going to see Captain America Civil War. And my biggest takeaway coming out of that movie was, I want a Black Widow movie right now. Like, this is what I want. I want more of this character. The screening I was at, we were given a survey that was it was a survey by Disney. They wanted to know audience feedback. And everywhere I could possibly say, this is the character I want more of, I marked it down. And then I wrote it at the top of the page, make a Black Widow movie, in the biggest letters I could, all caps. And we didn't get a Black Widow movie until, what was it, 2020, 2021? It was deep in the pandemic. They released it. They couldn't release it in theaters. And by then, the character was already dead. Yeah. So it's like, what are you even doing? What is the point of this movie? And the point of the movie was to introduce Yelena, who's a great character. I mean, the point, looking at the sort of macro scale, but it was like, you had amazing momentum to have your first MCU movie with a female lead in 2014, and they clearly had no interest in it because they only wanted to make movies about white men. And similar circumstance here with, like, there should have been a movie about Sam Wilson years ago. Why did they wait so long? They should have greenlit that immediately after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or maybe not done Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was, it has its things that I like, but it's kind of a mess. Instead, they waited and they came out with this movie that I personally had no interest in because it felt like just extruded executive product. Like, everything that they were telling us about the movie was like, this is the next phase. The executives focus tested it and we give you this. Is it art? No. Yeah. Which may not be fair. I didn't see it. But
it was a real mess of a movie. And I think obviously there have been a lot of ways in which real life events have made things a lot harder. And part of that is, they had this big idea about moving to TV shows, and then COVID screwed up the production of so many things. And I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier especially, the big plot was supposed to be about a contagion spreading across the world. They had to make huge changes. The new movie, there was going to be a Mossad agent who was going to be a big part of the plot. And then that became a much more controversial topic in the last couple of years. And all of a sudden they had to, and I think the movie really suffered because they didn't know what to do with all of that. And it's interesting because I do feel like there are all these teams. Like, I would love so many of the Young Avengers characters who we have gotten developed. I'm really excited to see. Yeah. The Thunderbolts movie, you and I did a podcast about it. I didn't love the ending, but I thought it was a great, I like this team. If they're the new Avengers, cool. I like that. I definitely like Steve, but the fact that we don't have the kind of I just don't know anything about Doomsday. And now we're hearing in the last couple months that actually Chris Evans is coming back. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back. Chris Hemsworth, I think, is coming back. It just feels like they're kind of throwing their hands up on all of these phases and saying, well, it sounds like you don't really like everything we've given you, so we're just going to go back and give you a rematch of what you used to like.
Well, and that's the other side of it. Not only did they refuse to give us anything new for so long that we got sick of it, and by anything new, I mean movies that were not about a white man. Right. And not only that, but there was a period of time where every single movie was basically, like, every single protagonist was essentially a riff on Tony Stark. It was like, tiny Tony Stark Space Tony Stark,
Yeah.
Spider Tony Stark. Like they all had the same basic personality, and it got really, really samey. So yeah, now they're just giving you more Robert Downey Jr. And
Right.
again, people want things that are different. People want things that feel fresh. And I think that's a big part of why, for example, Superman, I think, is generally agreed to have been the best superhero movie this year because it felt so different from what we had been getting from that studio for 40 years.
I think many people agree. It's not universal, and we'll talk about that in a second. The Snyder Wars are back among us. But
oh boy.
The only thing I'd say to that is I do think actually we did get some new things. Like we got Shang-Chi, we got the new Black Panther movie that introduced, made Shuri Black Panther and things like that. But then again, nothing was done with any of that. We were introduced to the Atlanteans. That didn't go anywhere. The Shang-Chi movie, and I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it ended with bringing up more of the stuff about what are the actual 10 rings and what's happening with that. Nothing's been done with that. It felt like there were so many of these projects that were interesting, but because there wasn't it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we need kind of a word for like all of that. Maybe just the Infinity era. But it was so good at building the connective tissue between all these things. And now I don't want it to all be one story. Like I like that a lot of these things just exist in the same universe, but the fact that there's nothing tying it all together, I don't have any sense of what the overall story is.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I do, but I also think like back to your point about Black Panther, like that was a movie that was very different from what Marvel had been giving us. And it is, I think, still pretty much almost universally considered to be the best Marvel movie. Like
the first Black Panther, you mean?
Yeah, the first Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I had something else I was going to say there and I lost it.
I think it's definitely in the top 5. I think generally Civil War, Winter Soldier, and Endgame are probably ahead of it, but it's definitely in the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Winter Soldier is overrated, but you know me. I also think that The Dark Knight Rises is not The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is overrated. So I spent all of 2014, but being like, it's fine, I guess. Anyway,
you're allowed to be wrong. That's fine. But
what I was gonna say is that I do think to a certain extent they're running into the issue that these characters were designed for small iterations of long stories, not big iterations of shorter stories. So like it's hard to keep topping yourself. These characters do great. All of these characters, from Steve Rogers to Shang-Chi, they do great in 22 pages a month for, 40 to 80 years. But to try and have these tentpole movies with them, like I just don't know. Very few of them, if any, can sustain that indefinitely. And I include characters like Iron Man and Captain America in that. So after a while, there's only so much blood you can get out of that stone. Yeah.
And I think in some ways, that's why I was really excited about all the stuff they were doing on Disney Plus. And I think some of my favorite stuff was some of the series we got this year. I'm still a huge Ironheart fan. Because I think, like, for example, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, I can understand why that particular pairing wouldn't be what you were looking for. But I thought they were able to do let's explore both of these characters by exploring their relationship with each other in a way that would have been much harder to do in a movie. But, like, with all those shows, it always felt like they could never stick the landing. That became the thing.
No. And to be clear, that dynamic was the thing I liked the best about the show. The two of those characters interacting, I thought, was by far the show's greatest strength. It was the political plot line that I thought was kind of a huge disaster.
Yeah. I mean, there was also Zemo dancing, which is another high point for me. But
yeah, that was also good.
There we go. So let's talk about some of the Marvel specifics. And a lot of it we've gone over in great detail before. As I said, Jessica and I did episodes about both Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four.
No, we never did Fantastic Four because you had a baby.
That's right. No, you're right. Okay, I did do an episode about it, but not with you. So I know. I'm sorry. Talk to us a little bit about what was your thoughts on Fantastic Four?
Um, I think it's the best Fantastic Four movie they've ever made. I
That's a
also
low
thought
bar, but
it was
yes.
very low bar. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid B. I had a good time.
Hmm.
Um, I love the Fantastic Four. They're one of my top two favorite Marvel franchises, along with
Hmm.
Daredevil. And my most important thing going in, because I have this pre-existing uh, opinion about the characters, is did they get them right? Do I feel
Yeah.
like they treated my babies, my Blorbos? Did they treat them well? And I thought that they did. There was no character assassination. They did not know what to do with the Thing. He was barely in
Yeah.
that movie, which was shocking to me because he's objectively the best and most popular member of them. So I don't know why they fumbled so badly with him, but it
Uh huh.
wasn't a bad take. It was just they didn't know what to do with him.
I
Um,
I thought it was funny. Yeah. Uh, I thought it was funny that they literally put him in a synagogue, but also did it in a way where he was following a pretty girl he likes, so that like it's still possible to watch it and not know he's Jewish.
It
Um,
was all of it was so baffling, and like I don't know who that character was. Like why wasn't she just Alicia Masters? Like there was no like it just
hmm.
they just really did not know what to do, and the CGI on him was very unsettling. Um, but I think the hardest characters to get are Reed and Sue, and they nailed them. They did such a
Yeah.
good job with those characters, and I really appreciated that they presented a Reed who has moral lines in the sand.
Hmm.
He can see all the options, and there are things that he will not do and there are lines that he will not cross, because often Reed is presented not in his own comics, not in Fantastic Four comics, but in like crossovers and stuff. He's presented as kind of a brain without a heart, and they
Yeah.
they handled him beautifully, which I really, really appreciated, because I actually do like Reed a lot as a character, and he gets a lot of hate.
Yeah. I thought there was a lot that was so well done with the two of them. I and again, listeners heard my whole episode about this some months ago, so I won't go into too much of the details again. But I definitely sort of felt like, yes, I'm a new parent, and so maybe I'm supposed to completely be on Sue's side here, but I'm really not. And um, if someone told me that all of humanity was going to die unless I sacrifice my baby, I think there's a moral imperative that I have to consider that, even though my biological imperative is telling me not to. And so I liked that there was some pushback from Reed on that, and I can see from your reaction like that's a whole topic we can get more into. But I liked that even when Sue gave her talk to the people, she even had some acknowledgement of like, yeah, I understand why you feel this way, and like here's I don't want anyone feeling that we're abandoning you and stuff like that. And I thought it was a great exploration of, I the example I think I like using a lot is the okay, well, if I'm in a burning building by myself and my baby is in one room and three strangers are in another room, then of course I'm going to go get my baby. If a paid professional is in there and like their loved one is in one room and five people or three people, whatever, in another room, what are they supposed to do? What are we expecting of people who we have put a responsibility on of you are supposed to be serving the public, etc. And that's a whole other thing we can get into another time. But I just love that the movie raised that a little bit and was willing to push on it some. So I I felt overall I think I didn't love the Galactus plotline, but I think the way I described the movie is I came away thinking these are four great characters. I want to see them do other cool things. I didn't really love this particular adventure that they went on in what felt like a pilot episode, but I'm tuned in for the series.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, you caught the face that I was making, and I think for me, at least in my issue with the central ethical question of the movie, like
Mm-hmm.
I I agree. I'm glad that they raised that. Um, and again, for me, it's less important that the characters be right and more that they be in character. And for the
Mm.
Fantastic Four, every single one of them would save Franklin first. Like it's just
Mm.
that
Okay.
that is the in character decision. That is what they would do. But they would also like especially Reed and Sue, who I think are much more expansive thinkers than Ben and Johnny, who are very family oriented, they would
Mm-hmm.
like, Johnny would be like, well, we're saving Franklin first. And Reed and Sue would be like, well, and also everybody else. And Ben and Johnny would
Yeah.
be like, right, yeah, of course. You guys figure that part out. My problem with it is that they kept it framed in that very limited way, and they didn't actually engage with any of the other moral questions that are raised by that. For example, like nobody in the movie except the Silver Surfer ever treats Franklin as a human being,
Yes.
because they never contemplate what would it mean for Franklin to
Yeah.
become the new Galactus. They're like, we don't want to give up our baby because he's our baby and we love him. I think you also have to weigh the ethical question of, can I sell this person into slavery
Right.
to save the whole planet? Can I create an abomination to save the whole planet? And what's to stop Franklin when he becomes the new Galactus from coming back and eating the planet, or eating billions or trillions of
Right.
other, like, it's not, they
Well,
didn't get big enough for me.
and I would say there's two things there. I don't want us to just focus on this. We'll move on in a second, I promise. But I'll say this and let you respond. I think one of the things I think that often is an issue with taking an established story from comic books or regular books or whatever and putting it on screen is what I call the iceberg moment, which is where the movie shows you the tip of the iceberg and the people who've read the comic book story can fill it in. I didn't get that the idea was that he would become the new Galactus. I don't think that was made clear from the movie unless you understood some of that backstory. And so I walked away thinking of it that Franklin was going to die, that Franklin was basically going to be consumed, and that was going to be it. But you're right. I think in that framing, it becomes a very different question, as well as also the idea of, if what their point is to do is to basically just say, okay, Galactus, you're going to eat a world, go away from our world. What about the world that he goes to next? Like, that's also an ethical question somewhere. So anyway, any other things about Marvel you wanted to bring up from this year before we go on to DC?
Well, I will just say to that, in the original comic with Galactus, the one that this is based on, Franklin wasn't born yet. So I'm not getting this from the comics. Galactus says specifically in the movie, he says he wants Franklin to take over for him because he doesn't want to galacticize anymore.
Right.
So that's where I got that from.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of other Marvel stuff, I thought Fantastic Four was fun. I thought it was very stylish. I did actually like the Galactus stuff because it was so big and weird and ambitious, and I just had a blast.
Yeah.
I thought that was all really fun. I did enjoy that their take on Johnny Storm could so easily be read as compet, which that poor boy has been struggling for 60 years.
Yep.
And yeah, I know we touched on it briefly, but I really enjoyed Thunderbolts. And, you know, to my point earlier about how Marvel keeps delivering the same thing over and over again, I thought that was very different from a lot that we've seen, like maybe a little bit Guardians of the Galaxy-esque in this band of misfits thing. But I just thought it was new and it was fun and beautifully structured, and I really enjoyed that movie, and I enjoyed it much more than I expected to.
I mean, I thought Thunderbolts, I didn't, kind of like what I said of Fantastic Four, I loved the team coming together. I didn't love the thing that the team was coming together to do. But I felt like if you thought about it in these terms, that team, it was basically the equivalent to the Avengers. Each of them had their own individual TV show or movie, and now they get to all come together and all do this thing together. And I think I'd be a lot more excited about Doomsday if I had some confidence that that was the group that was then going to take on Doomsday, with the help of with the Fantastic Four playing the role of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, though, I just don't know where any of it fits. But we'll see. We do another year of stuff. So
yeah, and I think that also speaks to what I was saying earlier about how these characters were really designed for serialized storytelling, and so, you know, if this was a comic book, you could maybe say, well, I didn't love the storyline of the first arc, but I like all the characters, so I'll keep reading the book.
Right.
Which the sort of cost benefit analysis of seeing movies is different.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, I'm excited to see the next thing for all of them. So,
Yeah.
so in DC, this was a year of rebirth. This was the year of Gunn taking over. I think he officially started like late last year, but in 2025 we got his first big movie, Superman. We got the next season of Peacemaker, which I think did both Superman the movie brought in elements of Peacemaker the show in fun ways, and then the TV show kind of continued that, so we saw some good crossover there. We have a new season of Harley Quinn, which I think is outside of the Gunn's DCU, but in a multi-universe world, it can probably all come together. I'm trying to remember, were there any other big things that happened in DC this year, specifically under Gunn?
Gunn, no, unless you want to talk about like sort of the first look at Green Lantern or Supergirl, but those are obviously projects for next year.
Right, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, all right, so just looking at that, how do you think Gunn's doing so far? As a big DC fangirl, how are you kind of feeling about what Gunn is showing of where he's going?
I am still cautiously optimistic. I loved Superman. It was by far my favorite of any of these properties all year. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was such it showed such a deep understanding of the character and why the character has resonated for 86 years, 87 years now. And it was, I do think that, like, I already thought that Gunn was a smart and talented filmmaker, but I wasn't sure he could sort of flex into that tone. Yeah. I always think of him as a much more cynical filmmaker, and this was so like sunny and optimistic, and it was perfect. Because I have been so wounded in the past, I still keep that cautiously optimistic part, but I'm very willing to see like basically any property from DC that he's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, yeah, let's see what you got. You did a great job with Superman. I'm ready.
That's fair. Yeah, I think I'm very much there with you, and I think I don't really know what kind of numbers the movie did or things like that. Again, movie viewership in general is way down, and it's a whole other story. But I'm definitely someone who's kind of against the theatrical release. Has to be you have to go watch everything in a theater. So I want there to be more numbers tracking online stuff and things like that. But even putting that aside, I do know that I kind of made a joke about this, but it's true. We've that the Snyderverse has reawoken, and there's certainly a lot of people who are very critical of this movie. It's too woke, he's too weak, he's not powerful enough, it's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think, like, even putting aside the bad faith parts of some of those arguments, I do think there are a lot of people who maybe one of their first introductions to Superman was through the Justice League, and that's a character that they really like. And this is very much not that. And but I think that that's why I think I like it for all the same reasons you talked about. This is the Christopher Reeve ones were movies I loved when I was 5, and I still love them for that same reason. Margot Kidder was probably one of my first crushes, along with Princess Leia, but before the gold bikini. Thank you very much. But I feel like this was the first time I felt like I was seeing the character you have told me about so many times.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot say enough good things about both James Gunn's treatment of Superman and David Corenswet's. I mean, pitch perfect performance. He's so wonderful in the role. And yeah, some people may have imprinted on the late Snyder. I was going to say Henry Cavill. It's not Henry Cavill's fault. Like, I don't think that anything that happened in those movies was his fault. Yeah. And I think he was closer to Superman as a character was closer to write earlier in that. It's not even Superman really I don't know. The point is, like you said earlier, sometimes people are wrong, and that's okay. Yeah. And with all of these characters, like I said, Superman is a character who's been around 87 years. Batman has been around 86 years.
Right.
most of the characters in these movies, anywhere from 60 to nearly 90 years, they've changed over the decades. There are different versions of them. Adam West is very different from Christian Bale, but they are both perfectly acceptable Batmen.
Yeah.
But there does come a point when you are just wrong. And when you have Batman in a tank shooting people with guns, you are wrong. That's wrong. That's just not correct. And
yeah,
I'm sorry if people are mad that Superman cares about saving lives, but he does.
Yeah. And it's, I got to rewatch it recently, and to me, like, the saving the squirrel moment is so essential, you know, showing that, just like carrying and then when they're fighting the big kaiju and he's the one who's like, can we not kill it? Can we not make it suffer? Those sort of things. And I think, to me, I think part of what I liked about it so much is not only that I thought it really did the characters so well, but I felt like it did a great job of saying, like, we're not trying to be what the MCU did. We're also not trying to be Snyderverse again, because it was not an origin story. It had some elements of the origin in it, but it was not an origin story. And it also wasn't a standalone. You know, I think one kind of critique that's been brought that I think is a little bit accurate, but I don't think it was a bad thing, is Gunn's really good at teams of misfit movies, you know? And this is Superman's movie, but it's also an ensemble movie. And it was introducing a world that already has superheroes and has superheroes to a pretty high degree. And I loved that. And I thought the fact that we're not doing his origin. We're not doing will he or won't he tell Lois Lane. He already has. We're not doing so much of this. We're just jumping right into this universe. And I think especially because, and you and I have talked about this in regard to Justice League, the not the movie, the animated show from way back. I think for me, this version of Superman makes the most sense when he's in contrast with the other characters, you know? And so having Hawkgirl literally just execute Netan Putin, as I've been calling him. I don't remember the actual character's name, but, you know, that mishmash of people. And the way it was presented was, the audience, it's not that Hawkgirl's wrong to do that. It's that that's what Hawkgirl would do, and it's not what Superman would do. And they're both presented as parts of this wider universe. And I love that. And I think that more than anything gives me a lot of hope of what Gunn's going to do with the DCU going forward.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, to me, that part was a little sour for me, just because it felt like the movie spent 10 minutes on a conversation between Clark and Lois about consequences, and then it ignored the notion entirely for a punchline, which I felt like it wasn't holding up its own premise, but agreed that, like, from a character basis, I can't actually evaluate whether or not that was in character for Hawkgirl to do based on the comics, because I don't know which Hawkgirl that was, and there are
that's fair
3 to roughly infinite possibilities. Hawkgirl's a complicated character. If they ever do a Hawkgirl movie, please book us 3 hours to talk about it.
Certainly, I'll just to chime in on what you're saying there, I didn't feel like I was annoyed that it didn't have it because I felt like there wasn't time yet. But if the next time Hawkgirl shows up and we get like more of the, you know, that team up, if there isn't some United Nations group like coming together to say, hey, we're okay with you doing things, but maybe don't execute leaders, national leaders, please. Like, yes, I definitely want there to be some consequences of it, both from
one would hope
regular people and from Superman. But I hear your point.
But to your other point, like, one thing that I heard a lot of people saying was that it felt like a really long, big episode of Superman the Animated Series. And I don't know that I necessarily, like, I see where they're coming from, because it felt like an installment of something larger without making you feel like you missed anything. And that's, like, to your point, that it's not an origin story. It's not like holding your hand. It's just like, this is a world that Superman's in. You know what that's like. We don't need, you got this. You can keep up. It's fine.
Right.
And I think that in the long run is way more sustainable for as many movies as you want to have, as well as incorporating other parts of the universe in different tones and different genres, because it's not so tightly linked together like with the MCU. everything that happens to these people stems from like, what did Steve Rogers do in World War II, and also Red Skull and the Tesseract and whatever,
Right.
and what did Tony Stark do in that cave? And
Right.
after a while, like it's not load bearing anymore.
I think you're making a great point. And here I'll say, as much as I love the Dark Knight trilogy, with the exception of the third one not being, I think, as good as the other two, I saw a TikTok recently where someone was saying that trilogy kind of was great for that trilogy, but it kind of became an imprint that a lot of trilogies since then, including a lot of the Marvel hero trilogies, have felt like they had to do, which is movie one's the origin story. Movie 2 is the person trying to be the hero but facing major challenges and wondering if they should give up. And movie 3 is them either deciding to retire and end their time as the hero, or deciding to, like, coming to peace with it and now going into a next phase of it or something. But like, and the Thor trilogy plays out that way. A number of these play out that way. And I think you're right. This one feels like it's an installment. It feels like an episode in some ways, and it doesn't feel like it's therefore like we only can do a trilogy.
Yeah, it feels like it could have opened with last time on Superman. Like,
yeah, I think very much so.
Which I love.
Well, and this is a good transition time, because one of the things that movie did, like a lot of big movies try and do today when you're trying to set up an extended universe, is it gave us some of the characters who are going to be big things in the next year. So let's talk about 2026, and especially the Supergirl movie, the Green Lantern show. But first, I want to go behind the camera, and I don't know, do you keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening in like the business world of all of this?
As little as possible, because it's depressing.
I mean, well, so it may well be that we don't have. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've not heard talked about much, and I just don't know, is like Warner Brothers is being sold. And people have been talking about whether they're going to be like in theater movies if it's Netflix, or whether it's going to get more conservative if it's Paramount or things like that. And I'm just wondering, have you heard anything about whether like Gunn is going to get to keep doing what he's doing, or if there's going to be some interruption again?
I haven't heard, and I think it's too early for even him to know that. But so before, when you were saying like, oh, a lot of these big movies set up the next movies, because you and I were texting about Wake Up Dead Man the other day, I was thinking it would be funny if in the post-credit scene of every Knives Out movie, they just had somebody get stabbed. But it's sort of relevant because my understanding is that had such a limited theatrical run because Netflix deliberately tanked it because they wanted people to watch it on Netflix. Right. And that is extremely disappointing because I live in New York City. It's not hard for me to find a theater that's playing something, but I did have to take like an hour and 15-minute subway ride to go to the East Village which is ridiculous. Like, I live in Manhattan. This movie was only playing in like 2 theaters.
Well, my understanding was it was. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Well, if my understanding of the events is incorrect, please tell me. But I do think that it absolutely, like I know it wasn't picked up by AMC theaters, and that really screwed them over. But if we can expect to see that with superhero movies, which, like, at the end of the day, as much as I thought that Wake Up Dead Man was a beautiful thing to see on a big screen, and I loved it, it doesn't call for that big screen and that spectacle the way that a superhero movie does. And if you're not watching superhero movies on the big screen, it's a little bit like, what's the point of a superhero movie?
Okay, so this is another episode we're going to probably do at some point. I have very strong feelings about. I think you can have a perfectly good experience watching any movie that's ever been made on a screen at home. And I particularly as a disabled person who's always going to have trouble getting to theaters, I think there's a lot of, not what you're saying necessarily, but I think there's often a lot of ableism in a lot of how that argument is framed, as well as also just like how expensive it can be. And so to me, my ideal world is one in which there are theatrical releases that people can go to who want to, but no one ever again says it's better to watch it on the big screen for anyone else except myself. For talking that people can say I like going to it better, but I want to get us out of the idea that it's better for everybody, because I just don't think that's true. But also it's all the ways in which it's inaccessible for money reasons, time reasons, 25 minutes of ads these days or whatever it is. But in terms of so to me, like, the ideal thing would be it comes out in theaters and you can pay the equivalent of 2 ticket prices to rent it and watch it online, or something like that. That can be a whole episode into itself. Mm-hmm. My understanding of what Netflix was doing was not that it was intentionally tanking it as much as they want these things to only be online, but right now the Oscars won't consider it a real movie unless it's in theaters. The further side to that being, they own a couple of theaters. And I think so, especially because the AMC deal fell through, they only showed it in their own theaters, which raises... That used to be illegal for monopolistic reasons. It no longer is.
Yeah, that was super illegal.
Yeah, and so there's all sorts of stuff around that. But yeah, I think we're being reminded this is a business, and for whatever you will say about it, once Marvel was bought by Disney, it's been fairly stable. It's gotten more things in. Warner Brothers has been bought and sold 10 times, 5 times since the MCU started, or if not sold, it just felt like every couple of years there's a new person taking over. There's a new direction. There's a new idea for what the DCU is.
Longer than that. I mean, I remember AOL Time Warner.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really hope we don't get more of that with these things. But putting the business side aside, sorry, I get pretty heated about the theater stuff. But
no, very, very fair.
But yeah, so let's talk about it. So first, we're going to talk about Supergirl in a second, but first, just with Green Lantern. And we talked about this some with the Superman movie itself, but what are you feeling and what are you hearing right now about what that Green Lantern show is going to be like?
So as far as I know, we don't have a lot of information on it. I am definitely someone who at a certain point, I stop looking up information, even I would say, especially when I'm very excited about something, because I'm like, my brain starts thinking of it as spoilers. I'm like, no, I just want to experience the thing. You don't have to convince me anymore. So like when they said we're doing a Green Lantern show, I was like, oh, okay. And they showed us the casting for Hal and John. And I was like, you don't have to convince me of anything else. Kyle Chandler as Hal I would never come up with that one in a million years. And I'm so excited for this. I think it's going to be so fun and
Kyle
interesting.
Chandler, the actor who's kind of old at this point?
Yeah.
The guy from Friday Night Lights?
Yes, he's Hal. And
oh my God.
Yes. And the reason that is so particularly interesting is, and we did get that little first look, he's clearly training John.
Right.
So before that we got, to start with, he's clearly training John, which is evoking the 1970 Green Lantern Green Arrow run, which obviously Green Arrow isn't in this, but that was a really groundbreaking run. It has some really interesting things to say about race by 2 white guys. It's dated, but it was groundbreaking at the time. And I think that's a really interesting period to draw from, and not something I would have expected them to use, even though it is very, very beloved and critically acclaimed and whatnot. But also there was a shot of them, even before the first look, there was just like a still image of the two of them walking down the road in the desert. And it immediately made me think of Hal at the beginning of the 1990 run, which is shortly before he loses his mind, goes evil, and destroys the Green Lantern Corps. And he's older then. He has gray temples. Like he's been through it. And I don't know if they're drawing on that too, but I think these are such interesting places to draw from, because Hal is very much a character. He's either Maverick from Top Gun, or he is a man who is completely falling apart. Like his life is in shambles. And the movie that we got in 2011, he was Maverick from Top Gun, and that was terrible. And to draw on these other stories that are very much Hal with his life in shambles, Hal who does not know what he's doing, is so, so interesting. And then to pair him with a young and very confident John, like I'm so excited. I don't know how it fits with the Guy Gardner stuff, and I don't care. I'm seated.
No, I think that all sounds wonderful. Because when I hear Hal Jordan, I know the Ryan Reynolds movie. I know some of the from the comics and the animated shows. I definitely think of young and brash and Maverick. And it's funny because I just saw the second Top Gun movie, which is kind of about what happens to that person when they grow up, and like
Yeah.
everyone else has become admirals and everyone else has made families, and he's trying to be young and brash and he's just not. And I think that could be a really interesting character. And while I don't think it's going to be exactly like this by any means, when you talk about like a broken down person whose life is falling apart, can they still be a mentor? My mind immediately goes to the first of the animated Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah.
Spider B and Peter B. Parker. So yeah, that all sounds great. And again, like you, I don't want to see any spoilers. I'm in. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Supergirl then, because she again gets introduced, and it's a very different image than we've seen from the CW show that was so popular for a long time. There was a movie in the '80s when that was the less said about the better. Um, and I know that this one is generating a lot of interest, especially because of the writer and the run that it's being based on. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the comic is based on or inspired by um, the com. I'm sorry, the movie is based on or inspired. It seems pretty closely based on the comic miniseries Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow from maybe 5 years ago,
Okay.
which was
And just as a note, Woman of Tomorrow is the subtitle of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was written by Tom King and drawn by, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Bilquis Evely. I don't know. The art is wonderful. The art is the best thing about this comic. It's a beautiful, beautiful comic to look at. I was not a fan of the story. I was not a fan
Mm-hmm.
of the take on Supergirl. In general, I don't tend to like Tom King's work. Um, and I feel like he has a tendency to take a very shallow approach to a character and
Mm.
build whatever he feels like building out of that instead of engaging with the full context of the character.
So
So,
what is his take on Supergirl, at least in that run?
so in the comic, Supergirl is depicted as being extremely jaded, depressed,
Mm-hmm.
angry. She's an alcoholic. She's on this planet with I think she's on a planet with a red sun. I read the comic as it came out, so I don't remember all the details that well. But she's on this planet where she can get drunk and mope and get into bar fights and be miserable, which I want to be clear, the tone that we saw in the trailer is very, very different from the comic. And I'll talk about the trailer more, but the
Right.
comic is bleak. It is depressing. There are no jokes whatsoever in this comic.
Okay.
And this young girl uh, who she's gotten into some kind of trouble. Bad guys have attacked her farm, I think. I don't remember the details. She goes to Supergirl and she's like, I need you to help me because you're a hero. And Supergirl's like, am I? And then they have these bleak adventures with a ton of violence and all these like flashbacks to the trauma of Krypton being
Right.
destroyed. But like
So
when I say
if I'm getting Jessica Jones vibes, that's not too very different kind of trauma, but it sounds like that's not too far off in terms of the I don't know if I want to be a hero. I'm dealing with all this trauma. I'm drinking a lot kind of
yes.
thing.
Yes. In terms of characterization, I would say that Jessica Jones, at least the TV show, has a really distinct sense of humor. And again, the comic is humorless. It is
Mm-hmm.
it's completely
Right.
humorless. And like DC has really tried in the past 20 years to reimagine Supergirl as this very angry and violent character, often angry, violent, and sexy,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is not how she was historically before that.
Right.
And that A Woman of Tomorrow is not, it doesn't lean into the sexy thing at all. But when I say that Tom King, to me, has a very shallow take on characters, like when you read Woman of Tomorrow, it's very clear that he read Supergirl's first appearance in Action Comics number 252 in 1959 because he recreates some of the scenes from it of Krypton being destroyed, except he makes them a lot darker. Like she finds like a dead baby at one point, which
Oh,
I assure
God.
you does not happen in a comic in 1959.
That does not sound like the Hays Code would approve.
Oh no. But I didn't see any evidence that he'd read any comics with her after that.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly, like, just from the little bit we get of her, she's on screen for maybe 90 seconds in the Superman movie, that does seem like she's a party girl. She likes going out and getting drunk. And the party girl who's partying because and she's happy-go-lucky and funny on the outside because she's carrying so much pain on the inside. That's an interesting story idea that is somewhat distinct from the Jessica Jones, I'm just emo all the time. And that does sound somewhat distinct from the Tom King idea. So that would give me some hope.
Yeah, and that, like, I was not happy when I heard they were adapting this comic. But then when I saw her in the movie, I was like, oh, that is a really different tone. Again, the comic is humorless, and Gunn is going for comedy, which we know he's very good at. And there were two things about the trailer that I really liked. One was that it did go for that much more, I mean, certainly like a dark humor, but a much more humorous tone. It felt fun. Right. And two, it was very much framed as Supergirl's story, whereas the comic is not really about her. The comic is told from the point of view of the girl who goes to her for help. It's very much about that character, and Supergirl is kind of a prop for her. And that's not what I was getting from the trailer. So those two things make a really big difference to me. And like I said, I was concerned about Superman because of what I'd seen. Like, I just didn't know if Gunn could match the energy correctly. And he really, really did. So I'm willing to see what he has here. Like, I'm definitely trust hopeful. He can do it again.
Like, and for me, again, not knowing much of the character, but hearing some of the emo, some of the darkness, I liked that at first, in part because I feel like the Supergirl as kind of the innocent waif who has all this power and is trying to do good, but is just kind of experiencing the world through wide-eyed, eyes. Like, CW did a great show about that version of Supergirl, and I don't need that again. And so I like it being that. I think that the word naivete is often has a negative connotation, and I don't mean it that way, but it feels still very appropriate to Clark in the Gunn world. And so I feel like a more cynical, jaded Supergirl, especially even though she's young, like, she's not a teenager, it seems in this. She's a grown woman, but she is kind of younger than him. I think there's a lot of fun dynamics that can be played there. So
well, and crucially, she's younger than him, but she's also older than him because she was born first. She was like 16 when Krypton was destroyed. And so she has memories of it that he doesn't have. And she has trauma that he doesn't have.
Right. But she was supposed to get there first to kind of be his babysitter to raise him, but she got lost somewhere in the Phantom Zone or some nonsense like that.
It depends on the story. But yes, exactly. So she has a very different relationship to their shared tragedy and a very different relationship to their culture of origin. Like, he doesn't have the experience of having, I mean, he does. What Clark is going through is some like being adopted and not knowing anything about your biological parents and culture of origin. What Kara is going through is knowing everything that she's lost, and it can never be recaptured because the only other survivor doesn't remember it at all.
Right.
And there's a dog. So she has more trauma around that to process, and I think that's fine to show that. But I think there's a happy medium. Yeah.
No, I think there definitely is. And also I'll say, unless they are completely ignoring all audience feedback the way Marvel did with Black Widow ideas, Krypto is going to be a part of that movie because Krypto is so universally beloved.
Krypto is a big part of the book in a real...
Oh, no.
It's okay, but it's rough for a while. It's okay in the end, but it is rough for a while. So Krypto will absolutely be in this movie.
Okay,
but
we'll see.
He's not going to have a great time.
There's a lot more we can say about it. I'm sure we'll probably do a whole episode, definitely when the movie comes out, but maybe also when the trailer comes out. But let's now go back to Marvel to wrap it all up. What is Doomsday? What is that story? Not that we know anything what the movie's going to be, but like, is it? I know about Doctor Doom as a character, but
Yeah.
is Doomsday a specific comic run? And do we have any reason to think that the movie is going to be based?
It's just funny you keep saying that, and I know that's the name of the movie, but
Mm-hmm.
Doomsday is a word that I associate with DC and with Superman, because Doomsday is the name of the character who killed Superman in
Right.
the famous Death of Superman comic in the 90s. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure, especially with a character named Doctor Doom, that there have been any number of Marvel stories that have used the word Doomsday in them somewhere,
Uh huh.
but there's not like, it's not like Civil War or Winter
Right.
Soldier or
And Infinity War, I think, was a
over in the X-Men, like Days of Future Past or Dark
right.
Phoenix or whatever, where those are very, very famous Marvel stories. It's just because Doctor
Okay.
Doom is there.
I mean, I think that's better because it means it's more wide open. It's more open to do. I I know enough. I barely know the character, but I've heard enough from people like you and Riki and others who really love the character that I have a lot of concerns, especially with Robert Downey Jr. playing it. But I think we'll see, and I'm
Yeah.
hopeful that next year they're going to do a lot to build up to it because we do have all of next year until it comes out. So
Yeah. I mean, Doctor Doom is, I'm going to say it, the greatest supervillain in comics. He just is. He's the
really,
best one. Yes, he's the best one because he can do everything. It's sort of like how earlier I was saying that Batman can be Adam West or he can be Christian Bale.
uh
Doctor Doom can be completely ridiculous and he can be terrifying. He
yeah,
is he is whatever the situation calls for. He's a ludicrous character, but he is always, always a real threat. But also, sometimes he's very helpful. Like when Reed and Sue had their second child, and Reed was unavailable for plot reasons, and Sue was dying. Johnny went to Doom, and
yeah,
Doom delivered the baby.
okay,
Like, he's a fascinating and incredibly fun character, and he always speaks in the third person, and
right.
it's just an absolute delight. I don't know what Robert Downey Jr.'s performance is going to look like, but I know he's going to have a fun time because he seems like an actor who really enjoys
Yeah,
like having fun with characters.
I saw one TikTok that was saying like it's frustrating because if Robert Downey Jr. had never played Tony Stark and someone asked you who would play Doctor Doom, his first thought would be Robert Downey Jr. That he feels like that's a great casting in some ways, but it's just the Stark of it all and how we're going to do that. And so
Yeah. The other thing too about that casting is Doctor Doom is Romani, which
right,
Robert Downey Jr. is not. I would never have expected Marvel to cast a Romani actor in the role, but that's not an excuse because they should have. And they
mm-hmm.
should have also done that for Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver both
Right,
times.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I definitely hear that. I hear that. One other Marvel thing I know that's coming out, we'll just do like 60 seconds on, but
yeah.
we are getting another Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day. Which my understanding is we're getting much more of a street level Spider-Man. The Hulk is going to be in it, but also Punisher. And as much as I love the Punisher and Daredevil scene from the good Daredevil in the Marvel, which is the Netflix, I know people have often said that the Punisher and Spider-Man have quite a good dynamic in the comics, and John Bernthal is a fantastic Punisher. How do you feel about John Bernthal and Tom Holland getting to talk shop about superhero stuff?
I just want to take Tom Holland and be like, come hide behind me.
Yeah.
You're too little for this. Like I know he's an adult man, but I'm like, no, John, leave him
Mm-hmm.
alone. Yeah, I mean, the Punisher first appeared as a Spider-Man villain, so it's
Yeah.
completely fitting. I The Hulk being there, but at street level is confusing to me. I feel like I have no problem with the Punisher being there and it's street level, but throwing in the Hulk not at all, much less in addition to, feels like
I
this
don't
is a
know
very
how the
big
Hulk
street.
helped stop a bank robbery.
Yeah, this feels like a little bit of a mess to me, but okay, I'm still 2 movies behind in that franchise, so I can't really.
Mostly, I'm just glad if it's the Punisher, because at least maybe it's. I mean, I do love Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in Netflix. You and I did a whole episode on why we gave up on the.
It's not Charlie's fault.
Yeah, it's not. It's often not the actor's fault. Natalie Portman is a great actress, despite what happens in the Star Wars prequels.
There are so many actors who have been done so dirty. I mean, look at both Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. We know they can be good superheroes, or they can be good characters in Marvel movies, because Michael B. Jordan was definitely not a superhero in his other Marvel movie.
Debatable, yeah. Some people like him as a character.
Sympathetic character, agreed. Yes. Superhero, no.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, I have one last thing to tell you about Batman before we wrap up. But do you have any last thoughts you want to share?
No, it was a good year for superhero stuff.
Cool. Jessica, where can people find stuff that you have?
So I write about comics at bookriot.com. You can also find me at jessicaplummerwrites.com. I've got a blog there where I post about comic stuff fairly regularly.
Cool. And if you're looking for actually this will come out long after the holiday, but if you have someone with a birthday in the early part of the new year, or just want to get a late holiday gift, and your friend is an Arthurian of any kind, there's a great collection of short stories called it's Sword, Stone, Table. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Jessica has a story in it that is really, really good. It's just a fun retelling of Arthurian stories through modern lenses that I think people will really enjoy. So, Jessica, thank you so much for being a part of this. And let me share this last thought with you, because you and I are recording it as the holidays are coming up. Do you remember the movie Batman Returns at all? It's the Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Has anyone ever pointed out
mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
Right? I didn't come up with this. I found it on Facebook. But has anyone ever pointed out to you that movie is a reverse Christmas Carol?
Wait, what?
So in Christmas Carol, he has these 3 ghosts that show him like what his past, present, and future, what they might be, what they could have been, that kind of thing. In Batman Returns, the Penguin shows him what his past could have been, because the Penguin is like him, an orphan of rich parents, but who winds up going into a place of deep resentment and anger, unlike Batman, and becomes that. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is what his present could have been if he wasn't careful, or if he's not careful. An avenging angel who turns more to vengeance than just trying to do what's right. I think it's Maxwell Lord, the rich guy in it, shows what an elder Bruce Wayne could be in the future. It's not Max Lord.
It's a made-up character. I think it is Max, but I don't remember.
But whoever it is, this is what Bruce Wayne could be if you weren't who you are. Using all your money for your own self-aggrandizement and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a loose theory. There's a little stretching you have to do. But if you think about that, those 3 as his past, his present, and his future, like the mirror, the dark universe mirror, and it is happening all at Christmas time.
So you're saying that like a Christmas Carol, you see those 3 timelines to be like, you need to correct yourself. Whereas in this, you get to see those 3 timelines as like, no, keep doing what you're doing.
Yep, because you made the right choices here. So
that's hilarious. The idea that Bruce Wayne has ever made the right choice. Like, this is, believe it or not, this is the healthiest path. I couldn't believe it either, but there you have it.
I'm just saying, my most controversial statement of the year, it makes Batman Returns more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard.
Oh, and you save that to the end like a knife to the ribs.
Thank you very much, everybody. Happy New Year.